much June का नहीं है वो rise, but फिर भी it's hot here. Now it's rather hot.
So we're live on YouTube, and if you allow me, Vivek, Chaya ma'am, can we start? We also have around 45 participants, and I think others will join as we start. So if you allow me, can we start?
Please go ahead.
So good afternoon, Chaya ma'am. Good afternoon, Mr. Vivek Atray. Good afternoon, teachers, and good afternoon, other participants. Welcome to Shoolini's Ideas That Matter. The idea behind Ideas That Matter started, I think, around 8 to 9 weeks ago when Vivek and I came together and said we should create a platform to share ideas and we should create a platform to inspire each other. The objective is very simple. The objective is to hopefully inspire our students in return. So Ideas That Matter was founded, and Vivek and I speak to the best schools of the region every day. We have covered more than 54 webinars, more than 80 schools and colleges, and more than 100,000 teachers we have touched. We have reached as far as West Bengal in terms of our reach, and we're so delighted to be with your school today, Chaya ma'am, and all the teachers. I'm sure we'll have a great discussion. I'm sure we'd love to answer each and every question of yours. As a quick introduction, we have Vivek Atray hosting the discussion today. Vivek is an ex-IAS officer, a TEDx speaker, a motivational speaker, an author of 3 books, etc., etc., etc. I'm using all of this, Vivek, because you've done so much in life. You're also the architect behind the IT park of Chandigarh, which is so very famous. But more importantly to me, you are a very dear friend and also a visiting professor at Shoolini University, Kasoli Hills. Quickly, my background, my name is Atul Khosla. I'm the founder and pro-vice chancellor of Shoolini. I'm a BTech from IIT Kanpur, did my MBA, and then worked for more than 20 years in different parts of the world, in different multinational firms. My last job was CEO of a large consulting firm called Oliver Wyman, where I was heading the India business and a global partner. 7 years ago, the teaching bug hit me, and I decided to devote my full time into teaching. And I can very proudly say that I'm a very happy and proud teacher, Chaya ma'am. I love to teach, I love to speak, and it's so honorable and I think so exciting for me to be here today speaking to all of you. I think without taking more time, I'll request Chaya ma'am to introduce her school and speak for a minute or so, and then we'll hand it over to our very dear friend, Vivek Atray. Chaya ma'am, over to you.
Thank you, Atul sir. I welcome you both with us, and I'm sure today we are going to learn a lot from you both the dignitaries and my whole staff is there with you people, and we want that today, and I'm sure that they're going to learn a lot. Vivek sir, and everybody knows you as a TEDx speaker, different author for different books, and so many things I can go on speaking about you, sir. And I thank you for joining us today, and the whole Patel family welcomes you, and we are sure, and I assure you that in future also we'll have more such webinars with you, and we will be associated with you for longer periods, sir. And over to Vivek sir now, because teachers are messaging me that we want to hear from both of you. They were really waiting from you people to hear, because when I told them that you people are coming here for the webinar, we'll be there together, they were so happy and they're delighted to be with you, sir. Thank you so much for joining, sir, today.
Thank you, Chaya ma'am. Teachers, the format will be Vivek and I will take around half an hour. And simultaneously, please do keep posting your comments and asking questions. And we'll be delighted to answer all your doubts, all your issues, all your queries, any comments you have about anything that comes to your mind, we'll be delighted. Mr. Vivek Atray, over to you.
Thank you, Professor Khosla. Atul Khosla is a good friend, and this is a wonderful series. Thank you, Chaya ma'am, the principal of Patel Public School, and all the teachers. There are 64 participants now, as I can see on Zoom, and maybe others on YouTube. So very nice to see all of you. And it is a great topic, finding success within, that we have today. Atul Khosla and I, as he said, have done about 54 webinars, and this is an amazing number of webinars to have been done in the last 8 weeks or so. wonderful interactions and lots of questions and lots of answers, obviously, from us. So please ask questions at the end in the chat box and the Q&A. I will take you through the journey of how to find success. Atul will also take you through his journey, and he will also show you a couple of videos in the middle. So just to recap what we normally talk about, basically what is success, what is happiness, you know it. We're just going through it. The goal of life is not happiness, is not success, it is happiness. If the goal of life is happiness, then all the success in the world cannot make us happy if we are not determined to be happy from within. We know the most powerful people in the world, the most successful people in the world, they need not be happy. There is so much burden on them, and sometimes that burden makes them extremely unhappy. Whereas a simple person who has not much achievement, he has a small, let's say, Golgappa stand, or he has a small Chola Kulcha stand, or maybe he's a small time cobbler or even a rickshaw puller, he may be happier than the richest and most powerful man in the world. There are, of course, people who are more successful than others in terms of worldly ways, but happiness is something which is not linked to material success. When I say material success, I think you understand what I mean. It means success in the world. It means success in your career, acquiring wealth and acquiring fame and acquiring position and authority. This is material success. So I'll start with the story of an SHO, and in Patiala or Rajpura, people know SHOs very well because Punjab, Haryana, Delhi are places where the police and society and they know each other very well. They have interactions, they have lots of, I have been in the civil service, so I know that the SHO plays a very important role. Now, an SHO in a small town or small big village, he was very well established. He was there for the last 1 year, and he was having a rest after lunch. This was not in lockdown, before lockdown, much before lockdown. And he was having a nap, almost half asleep. One person was pressing his feet. SHOs are, entitled to a lot of aram after their hard day's work. And one person was shelling pista. Pista, pista chilke, he was giving him one by one. So these two people were looking after the SHO, and a third person comes. And the third person salutes. And he says, Janab ki badli ho gayi, which means, sir, you have been transferred. And this SHO gets a shock. He sits up on the bed, stands up rather, and he's very surprised because he doesn't expect a transfer. He has been comfortable for 1 year, wants to stay there for another 1 or 2 years. Now the person who is pressing his feet, he stops. And the person who is shelling pistas, the next pista he eats himself, doesn't give it to the SHO. Now what does it indicate? It indicates that the SHO is a powerful man, but it also indicates that the two people who are with him are quite happy to see him go, quite happy that he is no longer going to be the SHO. It means that he did not get any goodwill, did not become popular, did not really earn respect. Power and authority are one thing, respect and goodwill are another thing. Respect and goodwill can come to the most lowly of people, a volunteer who serves the society, a poor volunteer who just earns a little livelihood, but is very energetic in helping the neighborhood. He can be very popular. Very powerful man in business or government or wherever need not be popular at all. So there are two different things. Let us talk about teachers, and you are teachers. Teachers earn respect. And teachers have the opportunity to earn respect because they are teaching. And all the students who are there, they look up to them. They learn from them, hopefully. They attend their classes, they watch them. For hours and hours, they watch and listen to their teachers. In class, nowadays online, but otherwise in the class. So what happens? Whatever personality the teacher has, that personality influences the students either way. It could be positive, it could be negative. If the teacher is negative, angry, restless, going on getting irritated, then the students react and respond accordingly. If the teacher is positive, cheerful, full of energy, always enthusiastic about teaching, the students also respond accordingly. So the teacher's respect and goodwill depends on her or his character, her or his behavior, demeanor, teaching quality, obviously. All these things matter. And if respect comes to a teacher by heart, students start respecting the teacher, then there's nothing like that in the world. Because a teacher who is loved and respected by the students, no better feeling can be there to you. You know it. And I always tell them a story of an old gentleman who taught for 35 years, 40 years. He retired 10 years ago. He's standing at a bus stand alone, unsure of which bus to take. He's a little old now. And a young man and his wife and two children, they come to him. The man touches his feet, says, "Sir, you taught me in school. And I'm so happy to see you. I always admired you, always respected you. Now I'm a very successful executive in so-and-so bank and whatever." Now think of this old teacher's reaction. He has tears. Nobody talks to him at the bus stand or anywhere. Now this student has come. So those teachers who have goodwill, students will never forget them. And those teachers who were rude and angry and too angry is okay, but not too much, the students will not forget them also because of different reasons. So what do we need to do? We need to live what we say. That means if we want students to be in a particular way and inspire them, then we need to be what we say. What is success for a teacher? Success for a teacher is having put in many, many years of teaching, having brought out bright students, yes, with good marks. Of course, the marks are important, but students who become outstanding members of society in whatever way, that is the true success. Not only because those students got selected for IAS or IPS or IIT or whatever, but also because they became human beings with all the qualities that human beings should have. After the break, I'll talk about the Bhagavad Gita and how there are 26 qualities which Bhagavad Gita lists. All scriptures, any religion lists out these qualities of a human being which purify or make that human being almost godlike. All of us have those qualities in some quantity, little bit. None of us is perfect. If you are perfect, I don't know, but very few people are perfect. So there are so many qualities there which we need to work on, even if we are 40 years old, 50 years old, 60 years old, whatever we are, there is a long way to go. We keep on learning, we keep on improving, we keep on working hard to better ourselves. We wake up in the morning with Josh, even after 20 years of teaching. That is the way to live. And it is difficult. Life is not easy. There are ups and downs. There is a very major problem going on in the world nowadays. But we come out of it. We come out of each problem with our character, our enthusiasm, our goodwill, and we succeed. So according to my intuition, it is time for me to hand over to Atul. Let me see exactly. And my intuition is almost right, just 1 minute early, I think. Atul, over to you for your turn.
Vivek, life is all about intuition. And talking about webinars, we did 54, but I did my first century of webinars today. So this is my 100th webinar. And it's so exciting to me to speak to all of you. I think you might have done many more than that. Of course, you do so many of them every day.
Same number.
Lovely. So, we teachers, we are in such a wonderful, while at some level, it's a glass half full, half empty. We are all going through stress, but it's a different medium. It's a different way to reach out to our friends, our students. I'm actually really enjoying it. And I find this so, I feel so happy to reach out to my students in a different way. And I find the success, honestly, Vivek. I think what I'd like to talk about a little bit about is inspiration, Vivek, inspiration in in what we do and bringing inspiration into our students. But before I actually get into the topic, I wanted to tease all of you. I wanted to tease all of you with a small video on Shoolini. I'm right now sitting in the middle of Khosla Hills, in the middle of a forest. That's where our campus is. We don't need fans over here, unlike all of you. So I took this video 3 to 4 days back. So I wanted to show some glimpses of Shoolini before I get into the pitch. If you allow me, Vivek and Chaya, man.
Please go ahead.
The reason, Vivek, I wanted to show this video was, apart from, of course, teasing all of you and making you jealous, is also to talk a bit about inspiration. You know, you so rightly said, Vivek, that the best success, the biggest success for any teacher is to make a student successful. And how do we get our students successful is what I'd like to speak about. I think it's about inspiring them. It's about making them do extraordinary things. You know, it's very easy, Vivek, to take super successful people and make them even more successful. You know, when you're working with students who are 95, 98%, it's relatively easy to drive them for super success. And I'm indicating over here to the IITs. I went to IIT Kanpur, and a lot of the times IITs would say, you know, we delivered you guys, or NIT Kurukshetra, where you went, Vivek. I believe it was basically putting very high quality students together. The chances and odds for us to succeed were very high. The real fun is to take average students, the belly of India, as I call it, and make them super achievers. And that comes only through inspiration. And inspiration can come from teachers. Inspiration can come from the environment. Inspiration can come from the culture that we create inside that institution. Inspiration can come from role models. Inspiration can come from friends. And inspiration can come from our history that we have, whether it's the scriptures, the Ramayana. Inspiration can come from webinars like these. So my very strong belief, Vivek, is as teachers, we need to expose our students to different instances, whether it's learning instances, whether they're opportunities of meeting extraordinary people, whether it's opportunity to see role models, students who were ordinary, who did extraordinary things, making them speak to them. And that one spark somewhere can make the difference and make students super successful. And if students are super successful, I think as teachers, we will find success with them. So I'm going to sort of leave that thought of inspiration with all of you. And I would like to come back and talk a bit about creativity and thinking outside the box. And I'll talk about a case study of a student of ours. But before that, Vivek, over to you.
Thank you, Atul. Very inspiring indeed. And certainly very important factor is inspiration. Let's talk now about two things. One is creativity, and the other is what I find my favorite pastime is to read books. Even today, you see teachers who read, they will be better informed, of course, but they will also be inspired. You know, you used to read books till school or college. I know everybody does. And then we got into a job and marriage and children and this and that. We stopped reading books. Very few people actually read today. And it is important to go back to books. Once we read, we will find fulfillment. That joy which comes from that book in our hand, of course, it's not the same on the phone or the Kindle or the computer. But even that is okay if you can't avoid it. A book in hand every day, half an hour, 20 minutes, will give you joy. Some books that you love, any author that you love, could be fiction. We are grown-ups. We don't have to worry about what we are reading. Read anything. But whatever you read, it should inspire you, leave you happy, enjoying whatever you did. And also writing is also very important for teachers. Creative writing of any kind could be poetry, could be storytelling, could be your professional writing also, whatever your subject is, writing a paper from time to time. I know you're not in a university. Shoolini encourages a lot of research and paper writing. School teachers also can try to write something unique about this subject. So reading and writing is something you should not leave. The other thing I want to say is that creative people are more successful. It is not that non-creative people are not successful. That I can't say, because a person who is an accountant and who has always been an accountant, perfect accountant, no mistakes, no error. He has kept the accounts of the school or the office or whatever, perfectly retired one day, did a great job. No mistakes. He didn't have much scope for creativity in those numbers. Maybe after manual accounting, he got Tally, then Tally got Tally version 4.2. That's a different issue. Creativity was minimal. But when he went back home, maybe he played the guitar or the harmonium or he sang songs. So creativity could be part of his life in that way. As a teacher, you have a great opportunity to be creative compared to an accounts clerk. You can actually create in class or online or whatever you're doing different experiences. If every chapter that you teach, every year you teach the same chapter again and again and again, if it is possible for you to innovate and get in a different example this time compared to last year, you yourself will be happy with that. Atul and I've seen over 54 webinars. We try and bring in different stories. I don't think I told SHO story till today. 54 webinars. Maybe I've repeated some stories like Einstein's story, some other stories I keep repeating at times. But if we create new ideas, new thoughts, new stories, new anecdotes, it helps us. Poetry, writing, singing, photography, painting, sports, anything creative in your life will also give you joy. A truly successful person is someone who looks forward to his day, looks forward to his or her work, because there is something magical happening. That magical something is something not routine. So you have something in your life which makes you extra special. I am here and Atul is here to inspire you. And here you are at your mid-career or maybe beginning of your career, or maybe towards the end of your career, still with the opportunity to inspire yourself and inspire others. Very, very important to do so. I was talking about the Gita and I was talking about the 26 qualities. I'll take some of them. How can we be successful by adopting these qualities? The first quality in that list is fearlessness. Now, fearlessness means we have faith. If you have faith on someone, you will be fearless. The child who is thrown up by the mother is caught by the mother. The mothers have never dropped that child. And the child knows that the mother will catch me. The child doesn't know pain. So the child laughs in the air. A grown-up, You try to throw a grown-up, I know it's heavy, into the air, he will be terrified because he knows that he could get hurt. What we don't have when we grow up is fearlessness. A child is fearless, can do wrong things, will put the finger in the electric point or whatever it is, and that may be dangerous. But we need to keep our fearlessness alive to some extent. Why are we always worrying? What are we scared of? Most of the things are due to overthinking. This is a subject which you must think about clearly. Overthinking is something which is against our happiness. Too much worrying, too much fear, too much repeating our worries again and again. Coronavirus. Why? Forget it. Coronavirus initials are CV. CV used to be curriculum vitae, and we used to now we have a new CV. We don't want this CV. So let's not think about it in our minds. Nowadays, I check the number of people who are succumbing to the disease or who are ill only once a week or once in 5 days. Every day or every hour, I don't check. How many? I know what is happening. I have an idea. Which also brings me to the next point, and this is linked to the qualities I'm talking about. Don't watch too much news also. Don't get negativity into your life too much. Negative people, negative gossip, negative language will not help you. One of the other qualities in that list is humility. Humble people are successful. Successful people are humble. Truly successful. Because a truly successful man will have respect if he is humble. If he is arrogant, where is the success? That is not success. That means that person is there only for a while. He will lose goodwill, lose friends. So another quality is humility. Another quality in that list is splendor. Splendor doesn't mean we wear shiny clothes, we have a shiny swanky car, a big house. It doesn't mean that. It means splendor of aura, splendor of your personality, your smile, your being, your presence, your persona, how people are reacting to your presence, the vibrations you emit. And another one there is, purity of the inner psyche. Now, purity of the inner psyche comes from introspection. It comes from meditation. It comes from knowing what are our faults. Controlling our negatives is success. If you control your anger, control your restlessness, irritation, you are truly successful. Every week, if we analyze, how was I this week? Did I lose my temper a few times for no reason or not adequate reason? Can I control myself next week? Can I make others around me more happy by being more cheerful myself? If we introspect and improve our thoughts, habits, and patterns of actions, then we can actually become a better human being. So introspection and then meditation. Meditation will also help us to combat our fears and worries. It will make us physically, mentally, spiritually more healthy. There are three parts of us: the body, mind, and soul. So the physical, mental, and spiritual part are all important. Those of you who meditate, congratulations to you. Very good. Those who don't, please start. Prayer is good, but prayer is not enough. Once you meditate and then you pray, that prayer is more powerful. When you're running from here to there and then suddenly you sit down, pray, it doesn't work. So meditate first, calm your mind, and then pray. I have a book here which is, used to be that side, Autobiography of a Yogi. And this is a book that I follow. It's not a religious book, it's a spiritual book. And this is a book which will give you a lot of happiness if you read it. It tells us what the purpose of life is. Many of you may have seen it or heard of it. Many people know about it. It's a world famous book. And I follow it. I practice Kriya Yoga, my wife and I, every morning and evening. Atul also does. In Shoolini University, we have the Yogananda Library named after the author of this book, the great yogi. Government of India honored him with a 125th year birthday anniversary celebrations. There are so many things which are important to us in the world which are not linked to material success. He tells us. So purity of the inner psyche means that we are doing whatever we have to do, but we find the true meaning of happiness and success. And what I'm going to tell you, the last couple of things are, we are not perfect. We are human. We make mistakes. We get stressed out at times. We get angry at times. We get scared at times. It's okay. Once in a while, it is okay. Not 100 times a week or 10 times a day. That's not okay. So we need to know ourselves better and try to improve in all these qualities which are there, which we know which should be there. Only enthusiasm and positivity and cheerfulness. If we start adopting only these, then also our life becomes much more successful. And I resigned from the IAS 2.5 years ago. Now you will ask me, some of you, why I resigned. So let me tell you before. I became creative. I wanted to speak to youngsters, especially, even not so young people, and tell them what life is about, what success is about. And they listen to me. I'm happy. Atul, you will be happy to know that my talks are now touching 2.5 million. I was very surprised. I saw 2 talks themselves put together are 2.1 million. And the rest of them about 500,000. So cross 2.5 million views on YouTube. So after this talk, whenever you have time, you can show your children some videos of mine, TEDx talks, YouTube talks, search my name on YouTube. And lastly, this is my book, which is also linked to the topic. The same topic is there today, Finding Success Within. It is a book which has 52 points and life skills, which you can share with your youngsters, anyone in the family or circle or students. And it's available on Amazon, Finding Success Within by Vivek Atray. And therefore, I'll hand it over to Atul now. I think we have a couple of minutes, but Atul can share his thoughts. And also, Atul, you will show us in the video.
Absolutely, Vivek. My passion is to make ordinary students extraordinary and superly successful. And I want to bring in the case example of Aman, who's a student of ours. She's a PhD student, Vivek, and comes from a relatively lesser privileged family, comes from Punjab, and you all are from Punjab. She was a bit of a trouble girl in her undergrad and masters, and some magic happened when she reached her PhD. She's done some amazing work. She's won something called the Young Water Fellowship, where more than 100,000 students across the world apply for. Researchers from MIT, Harvard, IITs, everywhere. And she won it. Here's a girl who did some extraordinary stuff. So what made her so successful? In my opinion, it's about creativity. It's about the leadership and the inspiration she got from the students and from her teachers, from the environment, our desire to push her outside the box. The word that he used, fearlessness. When all of that comes together, Vivek, I think magic happens and success happens. And of course, people get happy and that's success within. So I'm going to show this video of Aman and the wonderful work she has done. And I think we all will get a context about why I'm so excited about Aman when I talk about her at this moment. So if you allow me, Vivek.
Sure.
saw has done some extraordinary work. She has discovered a molecule which, when enters water, kills bacterial activity by 99.9%. Who knows, she might change the way we drink water. Who knows, she might even get a Nobel Prize for this. And that's extraordinary stuff. Extraordinary stuff from a rather ordinary student in the conventional sense. And she's not alone, Vivek. I mean, there's so many students who are filing patents, who are writing research papers. And I'm so proud to say that, Shoolini today is India's #1 patent filer. We filed more than 207 patents last year compared to 141 of IIT Chennai, which is #2. And this just happens because of, inspiration, creativity, and just getting to do our students do fearless work. And I think that's really success for me. That's really, finding success within, because as I always say, if my students are successful, I will be so happy, and happiness gives me success. I'll come back to talk a bit about happiness, but over to you, Vivek.
Thank you, Atul. This is lovely and very, very inspiring. Very, very good. In fact, teachers, I'm going to tell you a story now. I mentioned Einstein. I can't miss the driver story with Einstein because it is something which I cannot get enough of. So I must tell you this story to inspire you how a man can be successful despite being a driver. I mean, anybody can be successful. So he was Einstein's driver, and Einstein was going around USA delivering lectures on the theory of relativity. The science teachers know that Einstein spoke on E is equal to mc square, the theory of relativity. Now he was delivering one lecture after another in the US, and one university town, another university town. The driver was the same. He would drive him to the next town, the next town, the next town. After 24 towns, the driver spoke to Einstein in the car when they were going to the 25th town. He says, "Sir, I have heard your lecture 24 times sitting at the back of the halls. I think even I can deliver this lecture now." And Einstein is Einstein. He's a very innovative scientist, greatest scientist. He said, "Wow, super." He said, "I'll become the driver in the next town. You become Einstein, you sit at the back, and I'll take you there and you deliver the lecture." So they go there, and the driver is received by a bouquet of flowers and goes onto the stage. Einstein is like the driver, goes and sits at the back of the hall. Now the driver delivers a tremendous, perfect, flawless lecture on the theory of relativity for 1 hour. No mistakes. And Einstein is so happy, claps, everybody claps and cheers. Then a professor gets up and asks a question. You know how professors are. You are also professors. So in a way, so he asks a very complicated question. Now the driver looks at him and he thinks and he says, "Oh, that's a very simple question. Even my driver can answer it." And we all know who the driver was. So the question was answered. But you see, what do we learn from this man? Maybe he was arrested later, or Einstein saved him, or whatever, we don't know. But what happened? Firstly, he has confidence and fearlessness. He talks to Einstein and tells him, "I want to deliver the lecture." None of us can do that. Maybe we can, I don't know. I couldn't do that. Then he has the brilliance to memorize the lecture and deliver it. He doesn't know all the degrees that Einstein had, research. He only knows the lecture. He delivers it. Third, he has the delivery skills, public speaking skills, which Atul and I often hold webinars on. We'll do it one day again with your school. How you speak on stage or in front of a camera. Fourth, he has calmness with him. His mind is not restless, jittery, nervous, shaky, disturbed. His mind is calm. And fifth, he has presence of mind. When that person is asking a question, he has presence of mind, which I know you teachers have guessed all these qualities, because whenever I talk to teachers, they understand this. So it is very important for us to work on these qualities. If we work on our emotions, our mind, we will be more successful. Life is about the battle of the mind. And sometimes we lose the battle of the mind because we worry too much or are too negative or restless. And sometimes we win the battle of the mind because we are calm and we are composed and we are cheerful and we are creative. These are the traits. So it's very nice to talk to you. I hope you enjoyed this session, and I know that Atul will come for questions. We have about 20 minutes, I guess. Atul, over to you.
Absolutely. Thank you, Vivek. I think I've been truly inspired. I've been listening to you for so many times, but today was so special. I'm getting goose pimples, Vivek. Thank you so much. Always inspiring listening to you. So teachers, we have a chat bot. You all know about it. There's a Q&A. Don't hesitate to ask questions.
There are some questions.
We have one question from Sukhpreet ma'am. She's basically asking you, Vivek, how do I make a change acceptable with my subordinates? How do I manage my subordinates? And I think this is also a relevant question, right? Sometimes I'm asked to lead my peer group. How do I lead my peer group? I think these are all relevant questions. They're so EQ driven, and you're the master for these answers. So would love you, if you could answer.
Thank you, Atul. Actually, you're absolutely right, Sukhpreet ma'am. It's difficult to make people accept change and new ideas. If you are a leader, if you are the boss, if you are the HOD or whatever you are, it is very necessary for you to communicate your passion to the rest of them. What happens, I am very enthusiastic about a project or about a class or whatever it is. The team may not be that enthusiastic. So leadership means that we are able to inspire that passion in those people as much as we are. Sometimes they become even more driven and passionate about the new ideas than we are. So a leader who is able to communicate effectively, number one, you communicate your ways of thinking, why you think this is a great idea to them. You can take examples of Churchill, of Barack Obama. You can take examples of MS Dhoni, Virat Kohli, anyone who has led well. You can actually then talk to them one by one also. Supposing there are 6 of them, one by one, if you explain it to them, perhaps they will understand it better. In a team meeting, you say it and then call them one by one. I think this is your role. So in that, whatever we discussed, do you think there's a problem? Get the feedback, communicate. I think if you do that with good communication, you'll be able to make it more acceptable.
Absolutely. And I think as more questions come in, I would like to leave one thought, Vivek, which was a research done by Harvard. They traced 3 generations of successful people, both graduates of Harvard and also successful people coming from the streets of Boston. And what they found from this research was actually quite astounding. They never thought about it. First, there were successful people from the guys from the streets, and there were successful people from Harvard. But there were equally unsuccessful people who were graduates of Harvard and vice versa. So what makes people successful? And surprisingly, it's not about education. It's not about where you studied. It's all about happiness, because happy people are successful. That's the first thing they found out, Vivek. The second thing they found out was people who were lonely were more likely to fail than people who had support systems like family, friends, a community to lean upon. So that's my actually big learning, that if you're feeling depressed, you're feeling stressed, just reach out to your parents, reach out to your family. They're out there to support you. Because if you're less stressed, if you're happy, your chances of success also increase. And not just that, Vivek, they would also live longer. So probability of hitting 80 years and living longer is higher for happy people and people who are not loners. So that's a very, very big insight, I think, for all of us coming from deep research of Harvard. So let's go out, pick up the phone and start talking to our friends and rebuilding the relationships which we might have actually lost over the years. So that's at least one last thought I'd like to leave. I'm still waiting for questions. So teachers, please ask questions. I think we've got one question in Q&A. So I think Sukhpreet is just saying thank you, not a question. But I have a question for you, Vivek. Yeah. You've been in very tough situations, I'm sure, as an IAS officer. And tell us something about the toughest time you've had, times when you said, you want to just leave everything and resign. I'm sure you didn't resign because of the tough situations. Tell us a bit about how did you deal with those tough situations?
Yeah, that's a very good question. I remember that, especially when I was SDM, young officer in various places. Later, I was DC and director, but SDM. I had tough times with the public at times, and I had to be a good communicator, number one. Number two, I had to keep my cool. So there were tough times in the sense when I was in Kalka, people blocked the national highway once. The road to Solan or Shimla. It was blocked near Pinjore because there was some local skirmish and some, two groups were fighting. And it was late at night, it was winter, and there were jams all over. So I had to stand on top of a truck, of an army truck, with a loudspeaker and tell them I'm the SDM and I am here to listen to you. And I am going to request 6 people to come and talk to me here. Otherwise, let the rest of the traffic go. With great difficulty, we managed to convince them after half an hour or something. And then we got through. So there were many such situations in life where problems arose. Even a principal of a school can have a problem like that, where lots of people crowd or they gather or they strike or whatever. So it's tough at times. Public dealing has been my forte, and I'm happy that I could handle these situations because there are different kinds of people in the crowd. You don't know who's going to say what. You have to maintain your composure despite everybody losing their cool. So that is something that helped me a lot.
So I was just thinking about the new bypass, and I was thinking, Vivek, that's why they built the new bypass, right? So
yeah. I remember studying the route for that when I was SDM as far back as '95, and it actually came up in 2005 or 10 or something.
No, I think even after 2012 or 13. So
maybe
that's India for you. But Kiran ma'am is asking a question. She's saying, tell me the mantra for public speaking. Great question.
Yeah, great question, Kiran ma'am. And Sukhpreet ma'am missed the SHO story, but I can't repeat it. So you ask your friends to repeat it for you, the SHO story. But Kiran ma'am, public speaking is something which Atul and I will both briefly touch upon, I guess. You see, public speaking is what you do in class also. But at times you get onto the stage also. Sometimes you're in front of the camera. This is all public speaking. What we do when we get there, the first thing we have to remember is to be ourselves. Don't change your personality when you get to the stage or in the camera. If you are speaking just like you are, be Kiran ma'am and speak to the screen or the public as if you would be speaking to 2 or 3 friends. Your tone, your demeanor, your style should not change much. Of course, we have to be a little formal in public. We cannot use informal language and say, yeah, yes, okay. Obviously, we can't do that. But we have to be, firstly, ourselves. Secondly, content. Whatever you have to say has to be properly planned from beginning to end with 4 or 5 thrust areas. This is my speech, this is my points, and this is my story. Anecdote. If I have to deliver a speech, I have to know that I'm going to use 1 or 2 of these stories. Then delivery. Delivery like Amitabh Bachchan is not possible, maybe difficult, but everyone has their own style and you get away with it. Maybe you have a high pitched voice or a low voice or a weak voice. Work on it. Work on becoming more audible, more clear in what you say. Some people, they eat up the last word, for example, in a sentence. My daughter used to do that. I told her, Kavya, last word aap kha jate ho, jo bhi bolte ho. Then she became a theater actress now for the last few years after college. And she's even during college, and she's very confident. So gradually you have to become a better confident speaker by working on your delivery, content, style, presence, nervousness. And nervousness is something which would go away relatively easily. When you know that the people there are not going to eat you up, they're not going to destroy you, just go there and speak fearlessly. Atul, please add your idea.
Absolutely. I think the 2 thoughts I'd like to leave over here, Vivek. First is practice, practice, practice. I'm saying this because I can only tell all of you about my example. Kiran, I would stammer when I would speak in college. And then I started working. I was working for one of the largest and the most admired consulting firms, McKinsey and Company. My CEO calls me and says, Atul, we have to let you go, which means we have to fire you because you don't have the right communication skills. So what I did, Vivek, was I bought a camera, a webcam, and I started speaking to the camera. For the next 7 years, I would practice speaking to the camera 1 hour every day, and I learned how to speak. So I think that's one thing you can do, which is speaking to the camera. You can speak to friends, you can speak to an empty classroom, for example. Standing is very difficult. How do we stand still? There's a trick to it. Keep your feet as wide as your shoulders and rise on your toes. I think that's a way to keep yourself still. Don't use the podium, I would say. Podiums are not good. Learn to use use your hands. So don't use your hands to cross your shoulders. This is defensive. Use your hands to tell a story, but not kill other people with the sword or the hand. But you can use your hands in a very, very positive way. But the last but not the least, Vivek, is theater. So in fact, right now as we speak at Shoolini, we've started a faculty development program where there's a trained national School of Drama professional who's going and teaching drama to our faculty members. Our belief is that if you can do theater, you can be a great public speaker. And if you can be a great public speaker, you can be a great teacher in the process. And I attended the lecture yesterday, and he spoke about the value of sound, the value of rhythm, the pace at which you speak, but also the shrill at which you speak. And the example was, some people of us make it very shrill, and some people make it very boring. So speaking at the right pitch and the right treble and the right rhythm is all about public speaking. And of course, you are the master of that, Vivek. You've learned it by practice. But I think if you can also do a little bit of theater, I'm sure you can be 100 times better.
Maybe.
So practice and theater are two things I'd like to say, and speak to the camera, Kiran. That will really help you.
He's also talking about difficulty in front of the camera, I think. Just added a question. You want to add something on that?
I think two tricks over here. When you're speaking to a camera, don't look into the camera. Look a little on the side of the camera. Every camera, for example, if you'll see, Vivek, don't talk here, talk here. Because you want to be a little off the camera when you speak. That's one trick. For example, I'm not looking at the camera as I'm speaking. I'm looking at you, Vivek, as I'm speaking. It's a little off because you're on the left of me. And that's a very interesting trick I heard from a friend of mine who, by the way, is a very famous director in Hollywood right now. So that was one trick. So that, in fact, even for your pictures, never look inside the lens. Look on the side of the lens. Sony, which is written on the side, do that. So that's one. I think you lose nothing by speaking to a camera, Kiran. Just practice. It takes time. Repeat, repeat, repeat. Remember King Bruce and the Spider. You'll do well. Lots of videos on public speaking right now on platforms like Udemy or edX or other open platforms. I think you can learn how to speak from there too. But it's all about practice. If you're giving PowerPoint presentations, then again, there's a trick about how do you deliver the PowerPoint presentation, which also means don't read from the slides. Let the slides be self-explanatory and you're actually speaking to the audience. That's very important. So a few tricks. I think these are things that you can learn with practice and either getting a guru or making the computer the guru. I don't know whether I answered Kiran's question, Vivek.
We have one question from Sukhpreet ma'am, which is that, do you feel people are threatened by your strengths or they don't accept your passions or working styles? Where do we lack? So sometimes it happens, yes, that people are not very welcoming of our personality, or maybe we are a little too strong personality, and people at times take us a little as if we are difficult, whereas we may be well-meaning. So to make people accept your style, you have to be a little more accommodating yourself. You have to understand others well, start complimenting them on something. They also will start complimenting you. And then gradually, if you are too different from the group, like for example, let's say a student from America comes and joins a village school. He's going to be very different. So it is both ways that acceptance has to occur. Villagers have to start making him acceptable or comfortable. And he has to also, try and mold himself into that environment. So you also have to do that at times. So it's a two-way street, a meeting point, a middle ground. has to be found, and then people will start accepting.
Yeah, so the word is empathy, like you rightly said, Vivek. And we all have different styles. I think the day we accept that I have a very different style from Vivek's, and I have to put an extra effort to put myself in Vivek's shoes, I think me and Vivek will get along well. I could be an extrovert, Vivek could be an introvert. I could be someone who's extremely organized, Vivek could be extremely disorganized. I could be someone who's very practical, and that's a question which is next coming up. Vivek could be someone who's very creative. I could be someone, who takes decisions which are very people driven. Vivek could be a very decision oriented person. And there's nothing wrong in any of this style. But I think if the opposite styles will clash, I think we should just recognize that there are different styles in this world, whether it's with our students or whether it's with our peers, and just bend that extra mile. It takes effort, but I think we can and we'll be successful. So that's really my thought. I think there's a question on Vaibhavi ma'am is asking. She's saying, explain the difference between creative and practical people.
Very interesting question, Vaibhavi ma'am. You get the award for the best question today. Actually, creative people and practical people are, there is no comparison. I mean, they're different types of qualities. So creative people, as I said, are those who keep thinking differently, want to create something new, do something new, and bring in a little bit of change into the circumstances, try out things like painting or music, try out new ways of working, new ways of living. They are creative people. Practical people, I would say, are those who are not only in the dream world. They are people who know the ground reality. They understand. Some people might say, okay, today you know how the boys are in Chandigarh. They might say, chalo, Delhi chalte hain, we'll go tomorrow, we'll have a party and come back. Of course, when the lockdown is not there. But the practical boy will say, how can we go to Delhi tomorrow? You are just, coming up with wild dreams. So practical person is someone who understands the reality and works accordingly. Whether he is action-packed, not action-packed, that's a different thing. But he is practical. You are
absolutely. Again, Vivek, like you rightly said, there are Prabjot, and that's not Vaibhavi. I think that might be your daughter or your sister, whose name that I think shows over here, probably your daughter. So Prabjot, different people, like I said, have different styles. There'll be some people who are very creative. There's some people who are more practical. And we just have to respect both styles. I personally love creative people much more. I think we should think outside the box. We should break all shackles, be fearless. That's my style. Some people might like practical people more. But I think all of us have a balance, Vivek. I think we sometimes are creative, sometimes are practical. So they don't have to be either or. I think that's at least my thought, which also comes to Dheeraj's question where he's asking which is better, introvert or extrovert. So, Vivek, at this time, I'd like to introduce a concept called the Myers-Briggs Type Indicator, MBTI. And I'll just write it down for you so that you can search about it, teachers. So Myers-Briggs basically said there are 4 personality types that define any individual. The first is extrovert, introvert. The second is whether you are intuitive versus data-driven. The third is whether you're taking decisions on feelings, based on feelings or data. And finally, whether you're organized or disorganized. And Myers-Briggs also says that all styles are good. There's no good or bad style, but we need to identify which style is appropriate for that particular task. So Dheeraj, for example, if you're a computer programmer or you're a writer, for example, or your job entails being alone, being outside of the crowd, of the maddening crowd, you'll be better off as an introvert, right? Because you know how to be alone, you know how to write, you know how to program without the disturbance of people, and you'll succeed. But if you're an introvert and I ask you to now become an event manager, you'll really be very unsuccessful, or you become a salesperson or even a teacher as an introvert, you won't succeed. And the same is true for extroverts. Put an extrovert into becoming a computer programmer, the guy will completely, go nuts, because that's not his or her style. So I think all styles are good. No style is good or bad. So as you guide your students towards what profession to take, I think it's so important that you have the different their behavioral parameters in mind. I think to me, that's the answer. So you wrote extrovert, Dheeraj. I'll disagree with that. Introverts are equally successful, and there's nothing like which is better or which is worse. It's all about, being empathetic to each other. I think there's some Q&As uh, on the question side, and Supreet ma'am is asking another question. How important is it to submit task on time? I think that's a good question, right? I think it's very important, but over to you, Vivek.
How important is it to submit the task on time? Well, it's important, definitely. Kindly set some examples without mentioning the name. Not a very clear question, ma'am. Just clarify your question once. Until then, I'll take on Santosh Chopra ji's question. Sometimes we're not able to show the qualities of pedagogy. How can we show immediately? Again, the question is not very clear, but you could just ask in another way. Show the qualities of pedagogy.
I think what Santosh is asking is, how do we demonstrate a superior pedagogy in a classroom? And the different techniques of that, especially when you're doing it online, Santosh, the first is, of course, try to make it engaging, try to make it conversational. So one of the things, for example, that Vivek and I try to do is get into a conversation with each other. It's come over time. So I think having that engagement with your students becomes very important. Bringing in quizzes in between, showing videos as part of a pedagogy, I think that's going to make it more engaging with the students. I think that's the question you were asking. So Preet ma'am, of course, it's very important to submit on time. But if you're late, I would also encourage you, to just mention it to. Am I audible, Vivek?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. Sorry. So in case you're getting late to submit a task, just pick up the phone and mention that you're getting late. I think it's important to not give surprises. I think that's very important. And in India, we do a lot of that. You call up the plumber and say, where are you? It's just, sir, red light pe pahunch gaya, bas bilkul gate pe pahuncha hu. And he's probably in Ludhiana and you're in Chandigarh right now. I think it happens all the time. I'm sure you've experienced that. Chaya ma'am is smiling. So, there's importance of time, and we are 2 minutes over time, Vivek. So Chaya ma'am is out there. So we have to, I think, close it on time also. So I think before we close, I'd love to hear some last thoughts from Chaya ma'am, and then last thoughts from you, Vivek, and then we'll really thank everyone over here and call it a day. Chaya ma'am, your last thoughts.
Yes, thank you, sir. Thank you, both of you. And sir, your all mantras really wonderful. And I hope and I believe that all teachers should inculcate all these mantras like positivity, creativity, what you have talked about, and especially the humble nature. As teachers, I believe every student respect a teacher who is humble and a good listener. Believe that a teacher should always listen to the students, because when we listen to them, they feel that they are being important in the class. And teachers face this problem when students ignore them and all. This is all because I tell my teachers that be humble to them, give them time, listen to them. And whatever, sir, you both told us today, I think they are all going to change my teachers, and they're going to inculcate all this. And thank you so much for giving us all this. And I would like to have some more webinars with you, with your due permissions, for my students also, and so that they should learn such things. And the creativity you talked about, sir, thank you so much. Thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you, Chaya ma'am. And I think I'll request Shikha Sood to reach out to you. We'll be delighted and honored to speak to your teachers again on any topic that you think is worthwhile, and also to your students and parents. So absolutely, I think the answer is yes. Vivek, your last thoughts. You've got one sentence to give your thought. Okay, that's the trick.
Sure, Atul. There is a question, so I'll also deal with that in my last sentence. Sure. It is overthinking. Overthinking is our enemy. We should not overthink. We should clear our mind, declutter our minds, go to sleep at night with a clear mind, and give all your problems back to the Almighty. Wake up in the morning clear, and overthinking should be avoided. I think that's a mantra for success, which can be added to what I've said.
Absolutely. I think there was a beautiful movie, Vivek, called The Lion King. And there's a beautiful song over there in that movie, Hakuna Matata. Don't worry, be happy. So don't worry, be happy, teachers. Be safe. The worst we can do is to be unsafe because we have children and elders in our house. So don't roam around in the markets. Be safe, be happy. Corona will pass, so don't feel stressed about it. That's again the worst we can do by being stressed. It's not in our control, so why be stressed out? We know that you have all a beautiful principal in the form of Chaya ma'am. So seek support from her, and any point of time you want us to come, we'll be delighted to speak to all of you. Once again, thank you very much, Chaya ma'am. Thank you, Vivek.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, teachers. It's been absolutely smashing talking to all of you. Have a great day.
Thank you.
Bye bye.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Bye bye.